Welcome to Tennis Spin, where we put our spin on your tennis. So I got a fan that emailed me with a video suggestion. It's from Joshua B, and his idea of a video was tennis string shelf life. Do tennis strings have a shelf life? Well, I will go into that today. Stay tuned. All right, so Joshua B writes, I've got an idea for a video. Do tennis strings have a shelf life? I asked because I got some RPM blast strings that have been sitting in a drawer for 4 years. Now, I'm sure they're fine, but I read that multi-filament strings have glue that dries out and becomes brittle over time. So I was wondering about other types of strings and their lifespan. If there's enough content to make a video about it, I would love to hear your take on this topic. Well, I was actually going to talk about this in one of my videos, so thank you for the suggestion, Joshua. So do strings have a shelf life? Well, it depends. I would say 99% of the time, probably not. Now, with my 30 plus years of experience, I've had strings for many years, as you can probably imagine. And I've used a lot of the strings over that time frame that's been sitting around for a long time. So let's start with what strings are really made out of. Strings like this Gamma is made out of like a nylon based material. So if you think about nylon, like what's made out of nylon? Clothing, materials in shoes. It's kind of a synthetic material, a synthetic natural material, right? It doesn't really absorb moisture. It really doesn't, it'll melt, but it's got to be really hot. So unless you live in maybe Dubai or somewhere that's 100 plus degrees and you have the string sitting in the sun constantly, I don't think anything's gonna really happen to the string except that, it's gonna get a little soft and it's gonna be a little lively. So I don't think anything will happen to a nylon based string. It will though, however, depending on how it's made, it will oxidize. So on a lot of these Gamma strings, I noticed that they are more white when they're new. As they kind of breathe the oxygen in, it does turn more tan. So even like when people bring their rackets in, they're like, when I restring their racket with a Gamma TNT, a Touch, or a Gamma Professional, when they bring their racket in and the strings are broken, right, it's definitely more tan. And then when I give them their new one, it's like, oh, was that the same string? And I was like, yeah, yours was sitting out in the sun getting a tan, whereas the other one was sitting in the package, right, staying a little pale. So that's about as much as an effect that would happen to a synthetic nylon-based string. Now, polyester, something like an ALU power like this, right? If you think about what polyester is, right? Polyester is definitely is a synthetic material. The way these strings are made actually starts off in plastic pellets. So if you've ever seen like pellets in a pellet gun or BB gun or something like that, they actually drop all these pellets from barrels into like a big machine that melts it down and extrudes out the strings. So this will probably be around forever, including in the landfill is my guess, because nothing really will affect this. You can probably leave it out in the sun and you'll probably just get a softer polyester string from it. So yeah, this is definitely not gonna age. Age will not affect it. So Joshua, your RPM is made out of polyester. 4 years in your drawer, it's probably hibernating. So nothing happened to that string. It'll still be as good as the day you bought it. Natural gut. Okay, here's the thing about natural gut. I don't live in a tropical climate, right? I live in a pretty normal climate, and I've had like literally sets of natural gut at my house exposed because I hadn't had time to clean it up for literally 10 years, just like lying around, like exposed because there were half sets, and I didn't want to clean it up. I'm lazy, right? Because I'm stringing rackets all day long. So one day I got tired of looking at it and decided to see if it was still any good. So I strung my own racket with it just to see what would happen, if it would break in the stringer or if it would break prematurely. The only thing that really happened to the string was it got dark, is what I noticed. When I grabbed a new set, it was like a darker tan versus a lighter tan with a, in a freshly out of the package. So when I hit with it, it was totally fine. It felt totally fine. And this is after 10 years of being exposed outside of this foil pack. But again, I don't live in a tropical climate, and it probably didn't absorb so much of the moisture in the air. I mean, my house does get maybe up to 90 degrees in the summer. But it didn't really affect the racket, affect the strings. It didn't get brittle. It didn't break prematurely. It felt normal to me. It just looked a little weird. But again, it depends where you live. If you live in like Florida or something, or Tahiti or somewhere that's tropical, I probably wouldn't suggest that, okay? Because it'll probably just keep absorbing the moisture. If it's too cold or too dry, it'll probably dry out this string and make it real brittle. And that's when it may break in your racket or during stringing. But that's only if it's exposed to the elements. If it's still in the pack, right, keep it in the pack and keep it in a dry environment that's not, in direct sunlight, okay? That's why they keep it in this. Look, there's no air coming out of this. As you see, it's sealed, okay? Kind of like your potato chips. Do you want all broken potato chips? That's why they put air in it, so that it protects it from being crushed too. I don't know, not that this would not survive a crushing, but anyways. For kicks, I actually took one of these packs out and strung a couple rackets with it. This thing is literally 50 years old, okay? And this used to go on wooden rackets. My buddy Pete Allen had a bunch of sets of these sitting in his garage, and he's like, "Here you go." And I'm like, "Oh my God, that's stuff before I was born." He's like, "Yeah," he smiled at me. And so I strung with this, and it was totally fine. Like, this stuff is straight up nylon. Those of you who know this, know what I mean, right? Pretty much every wooden racket was strung with this stuff. It's kind of blue with a line. It's actually clear with a blue line through it. This is like nylon that went on, like I said, all wooden rackets. And this stuff is still fine. I mean, this is sitting in basements, sitting in my garage, sitting, wherever storage you wanted to put it for the last 50 years, and it still survived, and there's pretty much no difference in the string. So, do tennis strings really have a shelf life? Well, yes and no. It depends where you live, but most of the time, it's probably going to be fine. So, thank you, Joshua, for the email. Hope that answered your question. Thank you for watching Tennis Spin, where we put our spin on your tennis.